Robert Mueller, age 81, died. March 20, 2026. Robert Mueller was not a man who sought attention. In a city built on ambition and self-promotion, he was famous for doing exactly the opposite, for letting his work speak, and for never speaking more than the work required. That discipline defined his entire life. Born in New York City in August 1944, Mueller grew up in Princeton, New Jersey, where he was a standout athlete, captain of the soccer, hockey, and lacrosse teams at St. Paul's School, where one of his lacrosse teammates was a young John Kerry. At Princeton, he earned his politics degree, then received his master's from NYU, and then in 1968, he joined the United States Marine Corps. What came next is the chapter of his life he spoke about least, and perhaps valued most. Deployed to Vietnam in 1968, he led a rifle platoon, and on December 11th of that year, during an engagement known as Operation Scotland II, he ran into enemy fire to rescue a wounded Marine from an ambush in which half of his platoon had become casualties. He was awarded the Bronze Star with a V device for combat valor. Months later, he was wounded in the thigh by enemy fire, recovered, and returned to lead his platoon. After the war, he attended the University of Virginia School of Law and built one of the most distinguished legal careers in American history, prosecuting Manuel Noriega, overseeing the Pan Am 103 Lockerbie case, bringing down the Gambino crime family's John Gotti, leading the FBI through the September 11th aftermath and the complete rebuilding of the Bureau, and serving as FBI director under 4 presidents. Patrick Muldoon, age 57, died. April 19, 2026. Patrick Muldoon was the kind of actor that television and film could never quite do without. The face that appeared at exactly the right moment, in exactly the right role, and made you believe completely in whatever world you had been dropped into. Born in San Pedro, California in September 1968, Patrick was of Irish and Croatian descent, and carried something of both traditions in his bearing. He attended Loyola High School, played tight end on the USC Trojans football team, graduated in 1991, and then turned his full attention to acting. The transition was immediate and complete. His first major recurring role came on Days of Our Lives, where he originated the character of Austin Reed, a role he later returned to after a 16-year absence, a rare distinction for any soap opera actor. From there came Melrose Place, where he played the memorably villainous Richard Hart, and then Starship Troopers in 1997, the Paul Verhoeven-directed sci-fi blockbuster in which he played Xander Barkalow alongside Casper Van Dien and Denise Richards. It is the role that introduced him to the widest global audience, and one that has gained a devoted following in the decades since. Patrick Muldoon died of a heart attack at his home in Beverly Hills on April 19, 2026. He was 57 years old. Darrell Sheets, age 67, died. April 22, 2026. For 15 seasons across more than a decade, Darrell Sheets walked into storage unit auctions and made millions of Americans feel that the hunt for something extraordinary was always just one locker away. Born in California in May 1958, Darrell built his life around the auction world, spending years as a professional buyer before the cameras ever found him. When Storage Wars premiered on A&E in 2010, Darrell was already a veteran of the game, and it showed. He had the instincts, the nerve, and the gift of reading a room that no amount of television training could manufacture. His catchphrase, "This is the wow factor," became one of the most recognized in reality television history. He was known as the Gambler, and the nickname fit. He once found a collection of original Picasso drawings inside a unit he had paid a few $1,000s for. The art was appraised at close to $300,000, the biggest single profit in the show's history. In later years, Darrell faced health challenges, including a heart attack in 2019, after which he stepped back from the show and moved to Lake Havasu City, Arizona, to run his antique shop. He made guest appearances on the series up through season 15 in 2023, always warmly received by fans who had watched him for years. Darrell Sheets passed away on April 22, 2026. Jessi Pierce, age 37, died. March 21, 2026. Some losses arrive with a weight that language struggles to carry. The story of Jessi Pierce is one of them. Born in 1988 in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, Jessi Pierce grew up loving hockey and spent her professional life making sure the sport she loved was covered with the depth and passion it deserved. She graduated from Iowa State University, where she began her work with the Cyclones club hockey program, and built from there a career that would take her to the highest levels of American hockey journalism. For 10 seasons, Jessi covered the Minnesota Wild for NHL.com. She knew the team, knew the game, and brought a warmth and intelligence to her writing that set her apart. Her work appeared in USA Hockey, the Minnesota Hockey Journal, Massachusetts Hockey, and The Athletic. She was also a mother. Her 3 children, Hudson, Caden, and Avery, were her world. On the night of March 21, 2026, a fire broke out at the family's home in White Bear Lake. Jessi and all 3 of her children were lost. Her husband Mike was out of town for work that night. The Minnesota Wild, NHL.com, and hockey organizations across the country released statement. Justin Fairfax, age 47, died. April 16, 2026. Justin Fairfax arrived in Virginia politics as someone who seemed to represent exactly what American democracy at its best is supposed to look like. A black man from a family with deep roots in the state's history, whose ancestor had been freed from slavery by the Lords Fairfax of Cameron, for whom Fairfax County itself is named. On the day he was sworn in as Virginia's 41st Lieutenant Governor in 2018, his father handed him a copy of that manumission document. It was one of the most powerful moments in modern Virginia political history. Born in Pittsburgh in February 1979, Fairfax graduated from Duke University, earned his law degree from Columbia, and built a career as a federal prosecutor in Alexandria before entering politics. In 2017, he won election as lieutenant governor, the second African American ever elected to statewide office in Virginia's history. He served out his full term. His later career was marked by painful controversy, sexual assault allegations that he denied, and a difficult 2021 gubernatorial primary campaign that he did not win. In the years that followed, he faced a series of personal challenges that were not made public until after his death. Court document. Brigitte Bardot, age 91, died. December 28, 2025. There is a moment in film history, a single film, a single performance, that changed the way the world looked at France. That film was In God Created Woman, released in 1956. And the woman at its center was Brigitte Bardot. Born in Paris in September 1934 to a wealthy family, Brigitte's childhood was shaped by ballet, discipline, and a quiet rebellion that never fully left her. She began modeling at 15. By the time she was 22, the most powerful cultural minds in France were writing essays about her. Philosopher Simone de Beauvoir called her a locomotive of women's history. French President Charles de Gaulle described her as a French export as important as Renault cars. In America, the film that made her famous became the highest-grossing foreign release in Hollywood history at that time. She appeared in 47 films, recorded more than 60 songs. And then in 1973, at the absolute peak of her fame and earning power, she simply stopped. No farewell tour. No long goodbye. In October 2025, she was hospitalized for surgery related to a serious illness. She recovered enough to return home to La Madrigue, her beloved Saint-Tropez property where she had lived since 1958. It was there, at her home, the only place she ever truly wanted to be, that she passed away on December 28, 2025. She was 91 years old. Reiner, age 78, died. December 14, 2025. There are directors who make movies, and then there are directors who make the movies that people carry with them for the rest of their lives. Reiner was firmly in the second group. Born in New York City in March 1947, Rob grew up the son of legendary comedian Carl Reiner. A childhood shaped by stories, laughter, and a deep love for the craft of performance. He began his career as an actor, rising to iconic status in the 1970s as Michael Meathead Stivic on All in the Family, winning 2 Emmy Awards for the role. But it was behind the camera that he left his deepest mark on American culture. The films he directed across the 1980s and 1990s are almost impossibly varied, and almost impossibly good. This is Spinal Tap, the mockumentary that invented a genre. Stand By Me, the coming-of-age drama that broke hearts and still does. The Princess Bride, a fantasy so perfectly constructed that its lines have entered the everyday language of generations. When Harry Met Sally, which redefined the romantic comedy for a generation. Misery, for which Kathy Bates won the Academy Award. A Few Good Men, nominated for Best Picture. His first 7 films represent one of the most remarkable consecutive runs in Hollywood directing history. 3 of them are now preserved in the National Film Registry of the Library of Congress. Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle were found at their home in Brentwood, Los Angeles, on December 14, 2025. Rob Reiner was 78 years old. Michelle was 70.